If one signature could destroy everything you thought you knew about your life, what would you do? And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from? USA, UK, Canada, or Australia? The smell of Murphy's Diner was always the same: scorched coffee, fried bacon fat, and lemon disinfectant. A cocktail of exhaustion baked into the walls. Kate Baker moved like a ghost through it, pouring coffee, wiping syrup, plastering on the kind of smile that never reached the eyes. The red vinyl booths were patched with duct tape, the checkered linoleum dulled to a tired gray, and the neon "open" sign outside flickered like it was one more bad day away from quitting. Kate was 24, old enough to be exhausted, young enough to still be holding on to a plan. Finish her business administration degree at community college, save enough to transfer to a real university, start her own company one day. For now, she served truckers and retirees for tips that barely kept the lights on in the apartment she shared with her mother. But that Tuesday morning, that ordinary, grinding Tuesday, fate chose to step inside. Pete, her manager, had been pacing since dawn. "Corner booth, businessman, private. Don't mess this up, Katie." "I won't," she muttered, hating when he called her Katie. At 9:59 a.m., the diner's chatter was interrupted by the crunch of expensive tires over gravel. A sleek, black sedan pulled up, polished so perfectly the small-town dust seemed to slide right off it. It didn't belong here. It looked like it had driven out of Manhattan and accidentally taken a wrong turn into Millbrook. The driver's door opened. He stepped out. Tall, salt and pepper hair that looked carved by time rather than ruined by it, a suit so sharp it looked dangerous. He didn't just walk. He entered the diner like gravity belonged to him. The bell above the door jingled weakly, as though even it was intimidated. The room shifted. Conversations faltered, forks hovered in midair. Kate's hand tightened around the coffee pot. Something in her chest went still. "Good morning," she said, forcing her customer service smile, carrying a menu as her shield. "Corner booth?" He nodded once. His eyes, kind but carrying weight, flicked to her name tag, then back to her face. "Thank you." Kate led him to the booth tucked behind a fern in the corner. She poured a coffee, careful not to spill. "Expecting someone?" she asked. "My attorney," he said. His voice was deep, controlled, the kind of voice that never had to ask twice for anything. Kate left him the menu and walked away, but her pulse wouldn't settle. There was something about the angle of his jaw, the way he held his pen ready on the table. She couldn't place it, but it gnawed at her. 10 minutes later, another man arrived. Slimmer, glasses, briefcase. The attorney. They leaned in close, low voices blending with the clatter of cutlery. Kate delivered plates and refilled mugs, trying to ignore the magnetic pull of the corner booth. Then, it happened. The attorney slid a document across the table. The man drew out a pen. Not plastic, not cheap. Heavy gold with a crest etched near the clip. He uncapped it with a practiced twist and began to sign. Kate saw the first letter. Her stomach flipped. A bold, sweeping G. Confident. Familiar. Impossible. She froze, the coffee pot slipping from her hand. It hit the floor, shattering. Hot liquid splashed across the tiles, splintering the silence of the diner. Customers turned. Pete shouted, but Kate barely heard him. Her ears locked on the page. She knew that signature. She had known it since she was 7 years old when she found the hidden photograph tucked inside one of her mother's old books. 2 teenagers by a lake. On the back, in a careful hand, "Linda, you are my whole world. I will love you forever." Signed with that same bold G, followed by flowing letters she'd memorized like scripture. She had traced that name with her finger until the ink blurred. She had dreamed of the man her mother told her was dead, a father who had supposedly died in a car crash before she was born. But here, in front of her, was that exact signature, alive, fresh, still wet on expensive paper. Kate's knees weakened. She grabbed a rag, mumbled apologies, wiped at the mess with shaking hands. Her ears rang. Pete's voice blurred into static. Nothing mattered except that signature. She walked back to the booth, her legs unsteady, her heart in her throat. "Sir, that signature, it's my father's." The attorney looked irritated. But the man froze. His pen slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor, a metallic crack that silenced the entire diner. "What did you say?" His voice was no longer controlled. It was raw. Kate's breath hitched. "My father, he died before I was born, but that signature," she pointed at the paper, her hands trembling. "That's his. I'd know it anywhere." He stared at her. Really stared at her. His gaze moved over her face, her dark hair, her green eyes, the shape of her jaw. His chest rose and fell as if he'd just been struck. "What's your name?" he asked, voice low, urgent. "Kate. Kate Baker." The name landed between them like a dropped bomb. "And your mother's name?" "Linda. Linda Baker." The man's skin drained of color. His knuckles whitened against the edge of the table. "Linda," he repeated, as if the name itself had the power to wound. "From Buffalo." "Yes," Kate said, her voice barely audible. The gold pen on the floor might as well have been a gunshot, the sound of decades collapsing. "How old are you?" he asked, every syllable heavy. "I turned 24 last week." "Oh my God," his voice cracked. He looked like a man who had been holding his breath for decades and had just realized he might suffocate. "You're her daughter. You're my daughter." The world tilted sideways. Kate gripped the chair for balance. "That's impossible," she whispered. "My father died. My mother told me—" "Your mother told you I was dead," he said, his voice breaking, the weight of betrayal filling the air. "But Kate, my name is Garrett Kane, and I am very much alive." The diner around them dissolved. The clink of dishes, the murmur of conversations, the smell of grease and coffee, gone. All that existed was the man across from her, the man who claimed to be her father. Kate's heart pounded. Her chest burned. Her entire life had just split in two. And in that tiny booth, in a small-town diner, two strangers stared at each other, bound by a truth too big to fit in the room. The room had gone too quiet. Not the kind of quiet that soothes. This was the quiet that follows impact. The attorney hovered, uncertain, then murmured, "Mr. Kane, shall I step outside?" Garrett didn't look away from Kate. "Please." The attorney retreated, briefcase in hand, eyes flicking once to Kate as if trying to place her inside a story he would never be permitted to tell. Pete leaned around the pass, ready to intervene. Kate gave him the smallest shake of the head. He stayed, but the tension in his jaw said he wasn't far. Garrett swallowed, as if the next word might not fit through his throat. "Kate," he said, softer now, testing the sound. "If you ask something and you don't want to answer, say so." She nodded. The nod felt adult, even as the world inside her pitched and heaved like a ferry in bad weather. "Do you have anything else of your father?" he asked. "A letter. Anything." "I have a photograph." She drew out her phone, opened the album, scrolled to the image she had carried for 17 years, like a relic. 2 teenagers at a lake, a boy with a grin that looked like disobedience, a girl with eyes that knew too much about hope. She turned the phone. He leaned in. "That day," he said, half to himself, "we'd spent the afternoon daring each other to jump from the dock. Your mother hated heights. She did it anyway." "She keeps your promises," Kate said, and startled at how certain she sounded. "So do I." Garrett's gaze lifted to her face again, hungry and careful at once. "If you allow it, I want to know you, properly. But first, I'll do whatever you need to feel safe. A DNA test, a solicitor, anything." He paused. "What you were told, what your mother was made to carry, that wasn't your burden, or hers." The word burden landed like a stone in a pond, sending rings into rooms Kate hadn't opened in years. The late-night sewing, the rent packets, the monthly arithmetic of fear. She heard her mother's voice, calm, decisive, final. "He died before you were born, love. It's only us." The sentence had been a shelter and a prison. "Why didn't you find us?" she asked. The question sounded accusatory. She hadn't meant it to. She meant, "Where were you when I was 8 and wanted to know why Father's Day cards existed?" She meant, "When the landlord hammered for money, where were your shoulders?" He didn't flinch. "Your parents moved her. One day we were planning a future. The next, she was gone. I went to her house. Her father answered the door and told me I was a bad idea she'd outgrown." He exhaled. "I wrote. I called. Then I left for work in a city that eats letters. And after a while, the world—" He stopped, forced the sentence to obey him. "I never married," he finished. "I told myself that meant I was faithful. In truth, I was a coward." He shook his head, a small, furious gesture at a boy he used to be. "I should have found her. I should have broken doors." Kate's chest ached at the quiet ferocity of it. She felt the instinct to protect her mother rise like heat in her ribs. She was 18. Her parents were strict. She came here to her aunt. She had me. She raised me. "And she raised you well," he said. "No defensiveness. Only awe and something that looked a lot like regret." He reached into his inside jacket pocket, pulled out a card, and set it on the table between them. "Garrett Kane. A number. An email. Nothing else. The kind of card a man carries when people already know the rest." "Call me or don't," he said. "If you call, I'll come. If you don't, I'll still be here. I won't disappear again." She stared at the card. The surname felt like a cliff's edge. She said, "If this is true, if you're my father, that makes you a stranger I already lost, not a stranger I just met." His gaze flickered. "Fair," he said. "I would like to earn the right to be more." He glanced at the floor, the fallen pen where it had landed. He didn't bend to pick it up. He ran his thumb over the clip once, like a man checking if something that mattered was still intact. "I phoned my office," he said, straightening. "Told them I won't be in this afternoon." "You run a company?" "I do. It can run without me for a day." Pete, who had been pretending to sort sugar packets with furious concentration, looked up. He glanced at Kate. She gave him a nod. He drifted away like a decent man pretending he had somewhere else to be. "Would you—" Garrett started, then changed tack. "What do you need from me right now?" "Honesty," her mind supplied. "Proof. Time." She said, "I've called my mother." The color rose and fell in his face in one startled wave. He looked, for a brief, naked second, younger, dangerous to himself in the way hope makes men. "Here?" he asked, voice quiet. "Yes." He nodded, a movement that looked shaky at the edges. He glanced at the booth, then at the door, then at Kate as if asking permission to remain visible in the same air as her. She gestured to the corner. He sat. He folded his hands on the table as if suppressing the urge to do anything else. Minutes stretched. Kate refilled someone's tea and didn't charge him. She wiped a clean surface. She revised for the 100th time the opening sentence she would say when her mother walked in. She thought of the night she'd found the photograph, of the mornings Linda had stitched hems by the window, steam from the kettle fogging the glass, of birthdays with homemade cake, and the reassurance that two was a complete family. The bell chimed. Linda Baker stood in the doorway in her navy dry cleaner's polo, hair pinned back, face pale with effort. Her eyes went straight to Kate's, reading danger, disaster, need. Then she saw the man in the corner booth. She didn't look shocked. She looked like a woman whose past had finally traced her address and knocked. Silence folded the room again. Kate stepped into it. "Mom." Linda lifted a hand. "Wait." She took one step, then another. Her gaze never left Garrett's face. He stood, as if commanded by a law older than habit. "Hello, Linda," he said, and the name came out as a vow he'd been rehearsing in an empty house. Linda's fingers curled against her palms. Her mouth trembled once, then set. She stopped at the edge of the booth, breath shallow. "Garrett?" He said her name the way a man says water after walking the desert. "I didn't know," he added, voice breaking on the second word. "I know," she said, and her voice broke on the first. Kate stood 2 paces back, heart battering its chains. Garrett reached for the table with one hand, for balance rather than defense. He said, "We don't have to do this here. I can leave. I can—" Linda's eyes flicked to Kate, then back to him. "No," she said. "We do it here. We should have done it here 24 years ago." She slid into the booth opposite him. Kate exhaled a breath she hadn't realized she'd been holding since she was 7. The bell above the door jangled as a couple wandered in, glanced at the room, and retreated, sensing weather. Somewhere behind the pass, a timer dinged and went ignored. Garrett opened his mouth. The front door banged again, hard this time. A tall man in a county badge stepped in, scanning the room with the look of someone about to deliver paperwork no one wants. He held a manila envelope stamped urgent. "Is there a Mr. Garrett Kane here?" he called. Heads turned like sunflowers. Garrett didn't move. "Yes." The officer's gaze landed on him, then on Linda, then on Kate, then back to the envelope, as if debating whether to place a match in a field of dry grass. He crossed to the booth and laid the envelope on the table between Garrett and Linda. "Service of documents," he said. "Time sensitive." The room held its breath. Garrett didn't touch the envelope. Linda stared at it as if it might bite. Kate's fingers tingled. "What's in it?" Kate asked. The officer tipped his cap. "Wouldn't know, ma'am." He left, the bell clattering in his wake. Garrett looked at Kate, then at Linda. He slid a fingernail under the seal, cut to black. He stopped, hand to the table, knuckles white. "They're trying to freeze me out," he said. "The board?" Kate asked. He nodded once. It looked like it cost him. "There's a merger. I was signing one tranche here because I like to do some things myself. Someone," he lifted the exhibited NDA, a fragile relic in a war being waged today, "dropped this into the middle of it." Linda swallowed. "To make you toxic?" "To make me controllable," he said. His eyes flicked to her, apology in the look even as anger built under his skin. "I didn't know. Linda, I swear to you, my father, he kept me out of our private holdings until after university. He called it discipline. It was control." He let out a breath that shook. "He's dead now, and still dictating a room." Kate's pulse thudded in her ears. "So, the order, what does it want?" "Distance," Garrett said. "From you. From her." He grimaced at the issue, still on the page, like rot. "From anyone who might contradict the story that nothing was ever complicated." "Can they make you do that?" Kate asked. She heard the child in it and hated that it still lived in her voice. His gaze warmed and steadied, even with rage threading it. A judge can make me stand still. He cannot make me choose the wrong people. And if you defy it, Linda asked, practical, bracing. He nodded at the envelope. We won't. We'll do this by the book, but I'm not stepping away. We can petition to modify. We can give them something they can't ignore. What? Kate asked. Proof. He looked at her, not as a billionaire, not as a man who'd been punched by 2 decades in one afternoon, but as a father who'd found shore. If you'll consent, we do DNA today. We do it quietly, and we will tell the story ourselves, on purpose, before anyone sells it for us. Linda's mouth trembled. They'll devour you? I'm not the meal, Garrett said, and the iron underneath the kindness showed. Not this time. For a moment, the three of them sat with the ruin and the road. The diner breathed around them, the hiss of the griddle, the clink of a spoon, the whisper of a booth vinyl shifting under a stranger's weight. Ordinary noises return as lifelines when your personal history has just moved the furniture. Pete drifted near with a coffee pot he didn't pour. He asked, Everything all right? Code for, do I need to throw someone out or fetch you water? We're all right, Kate said. The surprising truth of it steadied her feet. Linda tapped the NDA's signature line. That's my father's hand. He looped his W too high. Your father, she paused, corrected herself. Mr. Kane's father, signed here. Her finger hovered over Charles G. Kane in a pen stroke that looked like a verdict. He sent a car the day after this. I remember how the upholstery smelled. She let out a laugh that broke halfway up. We drove past the lake. I didn't get to say goodbye to it. Silence held for a respectful beat. Then Garrett, gentle. I'm sorry. Linda nodded once, sharp. One tear escaped, and slid toward her jaw. She wiped it hard, as if the softness might undo her. She made my choices after that. Bad ones. Cowardly ones. She pushed the papers away. But I did not sell my child. You didn't. Someone else sold us both. Kate's phone buzzed against the tabletop, a small insect sound. A news alert flashed across the screen. Headline, red. She didn't mean to read it. It leapt at her anyway. Breaking. Kane Industries CEO served amid secret settlement scandal. Who is the hidden family in Millbrook? Her breath snagged. She turned the screen. Garrett saw the headline he'd been trying to outrun. His jaw set. They were waiting outside the courthouse. This was timed. As if on cue, the diner's front windows blinked with camera flashes, little white explosions reflected in the chrome napkin dispenser. Murmurs rose. Someone swore softly. Peach straightened like a guard dog who just spotted wolves. Garrett didn't look at the windows. He looked only at Linda and then at Kate. Do you want me to make them disappear? He asked. And there was no bravado in it, only capability. No, Linda said. Make them irrelevant. How? Kate asked. He picked up the envelope, slid the court order and the old NDA back inside with deliberate care, as if even ugliness deserved to be cataloged accurately, and closed the flap. We'll do the truth. Together. Today? Kate said, both terrified and electrified. Soon. But first, blood before microphones. He reached into his jacket, produced his phone, and typed with the swift certainty of a man who'd built a company out of nothing but hours. I'm arranging a private lab. They'll come to you. No leaks. He looked up. With your consent. Yes, Kate said, surprising herself with the speed of it. Linda's nod came slower. If she wants it, I do. He paused, thumb hovering over send. One more thing, he said carefully. The board will ask why today, why now, why you. I know the answer, but it should be yours. It's stupid, Kate said, smiling without joy. A signature? I recognized your signature. Garrett's mouth twitched. Not stupid. Fate has a handwriting. Another flash cracked across the window. Voices swelled. Someone tried the handle. Pete strode to the door and turned the lock, his palm flat on the glass, his look warm and immovable. Not here. Not today. A new sound wove through the noise. The buzz of a phone on Garrett's side of the table. He checked the screen. A single name, no surname, all authority. He answered, Charles, you're late. The line hissed. An older man's voice came through, sanded with power. Even on speaker, it filled the booth the way weather fills a field. You've made a spectacle, the voice said. End it now. Garrett didn't flinch. We ended it in 1999, remember? Today we correct it. You will lose the vote. You will lose the deal. You will lose everything you've built. I'll lose exactly what deserves losing and keep what matters. A breath, the kind that precedes a strike. You are not thinking clearly. For the first time in 24 years, I am, Garrett said softly. The line went dead. He set the phone down. He didn't look triumphant. He looked relieved. From outside, a reporter shouted a question through the glass, words blunted by thickness. Mr. Kane, is it true? Pete rapped at the window with his knuckles. The voice retreated. Garrett exhaled and looked at the two women across from him. We're going to leave out the back. Linda, Kate, there will be a car. Not because we're hiding, because we're choosing our own door. Where does the car take us? Garrett stood, straightening his jacket, gathering the envelope like a man pocketing a live thing. Home. To a lab, then to my office. And then, if you'll stand with me, into the light. Kate rose. Her legs were liquid, her spine iron. Together, she said. He nodded once. Together. They reached the back door just as the service corridor buzzer sounded. A discreet black SUV idled in the alley, windows up, engine a hush. Pete swung the rear door open and held it, broad-shouldered and stubborn, as if the simple act could hold back a world. Thank you, Garrett said. Bring her back better than you found her. I intend to. They stepped into the bright rectangle of daylight that smelled of rain and motor oil and fresh decision. The door fell shut behind them with a clean, final click. The SUV slid through back streets as if the driver knew every alley in Millbrook. No sirens, no sudden turns. Garrett sat forward, elbows on knees, envelope in his lap like a live charge. Linda's hands were clasped so tightly Kate could see the blood leave her knuckles. Kate kept glancing between them, two people who had loved each other before she existed and were now chained together by a document older than she was. We'll go straight to the lab, Garrett said, voice even, as if even this could be a shelter. Private entrance, discreet staff, results as soon as legally possible. How long is legally possible? Kate asked. Hours for a rush panel, he said. Days for full. He looked at her. You don't have to do this. I do, she said, and surprised herself with how steady it sounded. I want this to stop being a story other people tell. The driver eased to a stop at the back of a small medical building that looked like all small medical buildings, too clean concrete, a humming HVAC unit, a door with a keypad. Inside, a woman in scrubs waited with a clipboard and a calm that felt paid for. Miss Baker, Miss Linda Baker, Mr. Kane, she said. I'm Adele. We'll keep this simple. A corridor, a room with a stainless table, 2 chairs, a tray laid out with swabs and vials, each labeled with barcodes that turned people into neat, scannable facts. Adele moved like someone who had been trusted with too many emergencies to be impressed by this one. We'll do buckle swaps for all three of you, she said. Chain of custody is documented. Results will be transmitted securely. No one outside this building sees your names. She looked at Kate. Ready? Kate opened her mouth. The swab brushed her cheek. The sensation was oddly intimate. A cotton whisper against soft tissue, as if someone were asking a secret straight from the inside of her face. Linda went next, then Garrett. He rolled up a sleeve for a blood draw as well, at Adele's request, the cuff of the immaculate shirt settling at his elbow. Thank you, Adele said. You can wait here, or we can move you to a private lounge. Here, Linda said. We stay together. They stayed. The wall clock ticked with an almost aggressive politeness. Somewhere down the corridor, a printer rattled to life and sighed. Kate's phone buzzed again and again with notifications she refused to read. Linda's gaze directed to the tray, to the small, labeled vials now holding parts of their story. Garrett held the envelope in both hands, thumbs on the flap as if ready to tear it back open, in case the words had rearranged themselves into a less brutal version. Kate looked at him. What happens with the board? They'll call an emergency session. They'll tell me to recuse. They'll try to interim me out. My father taught them that power hides best in committees. A small smile, humorless. He also taught me how to count votes. And do you have them? Linda asked. I have some. Enough for a fight, not enough for peace. Linda's mouth lifted at one corner. Peace is overrated. He laughed once, quiet and startled, like someone who had forgotten he could. For a beat, the room softened. The door opened. Not Adele. A man in a dark suit with a medical ID clipped to his pocket. His eyes moved quickly, taking them in, cataloging risk. Apologies, he said. Media are gathering at the front. We have a private exit if you'd like to use it later. How many? Asked Garrett. Enough, the man said, and 2 vans. A pressure formed in Kate's chest, the old small-town fear of being looked at too closely. They'll camp, she said. They'll make this the only thing that happened this week. Let them, Garrett said. We'll give them something better than rumors. Adele returned with a tablet. Preliminary match probabilities on the rapid markers in 1 hour. You can wait in Lounge B. No windows. No windows sounded like mercy. They moved to a small room with a sofa and a water cooler and a basket of peppermint sweets that tasted like waiting rooms and childhood fevers. Kate paced. Linda sat and unclasped her hands. Garrett stood in the doorway as if he could hold back whatever might come through it. Do you remember? Linda said softly, eyes not leaving her lap. The dock? Garrett blinked, then nodded, slow. The lake. You jumped. You pretended you weren't afraid, then laughed in my face for hesitating. You were wearing that ridiculous t-shirt, she said, mouth curving. The one with the wolf on it. It was your favorite, he said. It was not, she said, and then abandoning defense. It was, actually. Kate felt something unfamiliar settle in her ribs. It took a second to name it. Warmth. Not the burn of adrenaline. Heat like a hand pressed to a cold window. I hate that you missed everything, Linda said, the warmth evaporating as fast as it came. I hate it more, Garrett said. There's a version of the world where I fought harder. I intend to spend the rest of my days building it backwards.
Linda looked up at him then, really looked, and for a moment, time folded, 17 and 40-something meeting at a table where the future had been arrested and restarted. A knock. Adele stepped in, tablet in hand. She didn't sit. Preliminary panel, she said. We don't usually deliver results this quickly, but you asked for immediate. On the rapid markers tested so far, paternity probability is greater than 99.8%. She paused to let that become true in the room before adding, we'll still confirm with the full battery, but... Kate sat. She hadn't realized she'd been standing. The world did a small, precise shift, as if finding the right notch in a gear. Garrett exhaled. He didn't fist pump or cry out. He just settled, as if his bones had been returned to the correct order. He looked at Kate and didn't say, I told you. He said, quietly, Hi. She laughed, a breath turning into a sound. Hi. Adele nodded once, professional empathy done properly. We'll have the full report by morning. She glanced at Garrett. You should know there are cameras outside the staff entrance now. Of course there were. Rumor moved like heat. Kate swallowed. What do we do? Garrett's phone vibrated on the table, skittering slightly. He checked the screen, his expression sharpening. The board's convened, he said. They're voting in 40 minutes. If I'm not on that call, they'll say I refuse to participate. Then go, fight, Linda said. I'm not leaving you in a building surrounded by cameras, he replied. Adele raised a hand. There's an underground link to the office next door, private parking beneath. If your driver moves the car, you can exit without being seen. Garrett nodded once. Decision made. He turned to Linda and Kate. Come with me, he said. Be in the room. If they try to claim I'm being manipulated, they can say it to your faces. Linda arched a brow. You want to introduce us to your board in the middle of a mutiny? I want them to meet the truth while they're still pretending they care about it. They moved. The underpass smelled of damp concrete and old paint. The driver met them at a locked gate and hustled them into a lift that hummed and made everyone silently count the floors. They emerged into a lobby of glass and steel that felt like a different planet to Murphy's Diner. Polished stone, quiet art, a receptionist whose smile was armor. Upstairs, executive floor. Security men in black suits fell into step at a respectful distance, like commas in a sentence nobody wanted to misread. In the lift, Garrett watched the numbers flash and stilled his hands by sheer will. Kate checked her reflection in the mirrored panel and decided not to care. Linda fixed a stray hair. The gesture made her look younger and fiercer all at once. The doors opened to a corridor where wealth had been made to look invisible. Frosted glass, a hush. The boardroom beyond was a long, bright box with a table like a runway and screens at both ends. Faces turned as Garrett walked in, some relieved, most offended at being surprised by a human story at 11:30 on a weekday. Mr. Kane, the chair said, a woman with the voice of an expensive school. We've already circulated the application for your temporary suspension pending review. Garrett didn't take his seat at the head. He stood beside it. You've also circulated a decades-old NDA signed by 2 dead men. Here is what you have not circulated. A preliminary paternity match above 99.8%, with full results due by morning. A murmur. Someone cleared a throat in a way designed to sound authoritative. Regardless of the personal matter, the reputational exposure belongs to the people who paid a frightened girl's father to silence her. He glanced at Linda. He didn't gesture. He let her choose. Linda stepped forward. She didn't belong in this room, so she took it. My name is Linda Baker, she said, steady. I was Linda Carter when your founder sent a car to take me away. I had a baby 9 months later. Today, your CEO did not ask me to hide. He asked me to help him tell you the truth. She looked down the table. If you remove him because he found his daughter, say that out loud. Don't hide behind words like fiduciary and prudence when you mean cowardice. The chair's mouth tightened. This is highly irregular. So is justice, Linda said. Kate felt adrenaline skate along her nerves. She stepped up beside her mother before she could think better of it. I'm Kate, she said. I work mornings at a diner and afternoons I study. Today, I found out my father is a man you can Google. If you think that makes him less fit to run a company, you should wonder why you thought he was fit yesterday. A few board members looked away. A few looked impressed despite themselves. One man, mid-50s, cufflinks like small planets, leaned to his mic. Mr. Kane, the Milford acquisition. I will not be blackmailed into walking away from it, Garrett said. We pause as the court requires. We correct the record, then we proceed. You do not get to profit off a lie and call it stewardship. The chair glanced at counsel. Counsel shrugged in a way that said, the optics are against us today. Very well. We'll delay the vote until after the hearing. Garrett inclined his head. Thank you. He turned, done with grandstanding, and found Kate's eyes. A small, private look passed between them. We held. They didn't make it back to the lift. An assistant, breathless, hurried down the corridor with a tablet held like a placard. Sir, breaking, she said, voice low. A reporter claims to have an exclusive interview with Walter Carter's widow. She says there was a second agreement. She swallowed, and that Linda took money too. Linda went still, as if turned to fine glass. That's a lie, she said. Not loud, so certain the air around the words vibrated. Garrett took the tablet. A live teaser played. Graphics loud, the anchor's voice polished into sensational concern. Coming up, the other side of the Kane secret. Was there a payoff in 2001? Linda's breath hitched. She repeated, 2001. That was the year I lost my job. My aunt got sick. She shook her head. No one paid me. I would have starved first. They're manufacturing doubt. They think if they smear you, they control me. He lifted his eyes to Linda's. We're going to end this. How? Kate asked. Her voice came out tight. They have cameras. They have a widow. They have everything. Garrett's phone vibrated again. He checked it, his eyes flaring with something that was not fear. He turned the screen so they could both see. Lab, full panel available, early release. That was fast, Kate said. They expedited, because I asked. He looked at Linda. Do you want to read it first? No, she said. I want you to. He opened the attachment. His face changed, not loudly, but completely. He looked up at Kate, a small, astonished smile beginning and refusing to be polite. Kate, he said, it's conclusive. And then the hallway lights flickered. The building shivered just once, an electrical hiccup that made security reach for earpieces. The receptionist's phone started ringing like a fire alarm. Sir, a guard called from the end of the corridor, voice clipped. You'll want to see this. They moved to the window overlooking the plaza. Down below, the media vans had multiplied like a rash. But that wasn't what made Kate's skin cold. A group of men in suits were crossing the plaza with purpose, ushering an older woman between them. She wore a neat gray coat and a black handbag clutched like a weapon. Her face was familiar in a way that made Kate's stomach drop. Is that? Kate said. Linda's voice was airless. It's my mother. If your grandmother walked in holding the key to a lie that split your family, would you confront her on camera or behind closed doors? Also, where are you watching from?
Security reached the glass doors first, forming a quiet wall that said, "Not today," in a language cameras understood. Beyond them, the plaza was a hive of microphones and open mouths. In the center, the older woman in the gray coat moved like she had practice walking through storms, chin set, handbag held tight, eyes refusing to dart. Linda's breath stuttered. Mom. Garrett didn't touch her. He only angled his shoulder a fraction closer, making space without caging her. Kate felt the year tilt inside her chest again. She'd seen this face in photographs. Birthdays where a smile never quite reached the eyes. Christmas mornings with a straight-backed certainty that joy should be tidy. Nan. The word felt small for the role the woman had played in the original removal. The lift chimed. Security parted. The woman stepped out, with two men from the PR team hovering like parentheses. Up close, her features were still fine, the cheekbones sharp against skin that had weathered without surrendering. She saw Linda, then Garrett, then Kate. Her gaze stopped there, sharpened, and softened in the same second. Catherine, she said. Not Kate, a name with syllabus and history. Nan, Kate said, the childhood syllable arriving uninvited. Mrs. Carter, Garrett said, formal, and for once the formality was respect rather than armor. Linda didn't sit. Why are you here? Mrs. Carter, Margaret to people who'd earned the right, didn't flinch. Because I am not letting strangers speak for our family. Not again. A producer at the far end of the corridor, headset skewed, gestured wildly through the glass. The plaza bristled with long lenses. The air itself buzzed with the question everyone was waiting to sell. On camera or behind doors? Truth or theater? The board chair appeared at the threshold, having smelled opportunity or danger, possibly the same thing. "Mr. Kane," she said, "we can accommodate a press statement." "No," Garrett said, eyes never leaving Margaret's. "Not yet." He turned to Linda and Kate. "Your call." Linda's jaw worked. She looked at the cameras, at the door, at her mother, at her daughter. The divide they'd all been walking along since the envelope tore open was suddenly a literal threshold. She reached for Kate's hand. "Closed doors. We start with us." Garrett nodded once. Security sealed the boardroom. Blinds slid down with a soft electric sigh, cutting off the plaza and its appetite. Inside, the air changed, thicker without the eyes. Margaret set her handbag on the table and kept one hand on it as if it contained the missing part of the room. "Sit," Linda said. It wasn't an invitation. It was the first time all day she sounded like a daughter giving orders to a mother. Margaret sat. She folded her gloves with precise movements and placed them on top of the bag. "Walter is dead," she said. No tremor, no plea in it. "He made decisions I cannot unmake. But you are not children now, and I won't be treated like a ghost summoned to confess on command." Kate swallowed. "Then speak because you choose to." A small approval lifted Margaret's chin. "Very well." She looked at Garrett. "Your father came to my door with the smile and the confidence of a banker. He said Linda was wasting her life. He used words like support and opportunity. Then he left a check with Walter and told him to do what men do when they claim to protect women. Decide for them." Linda's laugh cut the air. "Protect." Margaret didn't argue. "We argued," she said, "your grandfather and I. I said love can be poor and still be love. He said poverty makes love cruel." She turned to Kate. "I told them both to leave my kitchen. In the morning, the car came anyway." "You let me go," Linda said, low and dangerous. "You stood at the window and watched me be driven out of my own life." Margaret's composure shifted at the word let. She didn't reach for Linda's hand. She let the accusation stand until it had stopped echoing. "I did. Because Walter signed the paper, and I did not yet know how to rip paper that men believe in. I told myself you would call when you were ready. When you did not, I told myself you were safe. We mothers tell ourselves stories. We pick the kind that let us sleep." No one rushed to forgive or condemn. Truth can be more unbearable than either. Garrett slid the envelope across the table. "There's a second claim," he said. "A reporter has your name in her mouth and 2001 on her teleprompter." Margaret's eyes flicked to the envelope with something like contempt. "If you think I signed anything else, you do not know me." "She says you did. Or that Linda did." Linda's knuckles went white. "We didn't." Margaret's mouth tightened. "Of course you didn't. 2001 was when you were feeding two mouths on a seamstress wage and pretending not to be hungry. You came to me for help." The memory glazed her eyes and then sharpened them. "I gave you cash. I said it was your grandfather's pension. It wasn't. I sold my wedding china." The room absorbed the detail, small and cutting. Then where does this second agreement come from? Kate asked. Margaret reached into her handbag and took out an envelope of her own, old, soft at the corners, sealed with a strip of yellowing tape. She placed it on the table. Because you are about to drown in other people's stories, I brought my own. She turned it toward Linda and tapped the flap. Open it. Linda didn't move. Open it, Margaret repeated, softer. I have lied by omission long enough. Linda peeled the tape with shaking fingers. Inside, a single-page letter and a photocopy of a check. Linda scanned the copy first. The amount was modest, several thousand. The signature on the bottom was not Kane, not Walter. A neat, unfamiliar script. Margaret Carter. The memo line read, "For Catherine's schooling, do not return." Kate blinked. Yours? I took part-time work at the pharmacy after Walter died, Margaret said simply. I saved. When you told me Catherine wanted to take a class, I sent what I could, you sent it back. I sent it again. You sent it back with a note that said, "We are fine." We were not fine. I sent it a third time with a note that said, "Do not make your pride your daughter's debt." You didn't return it. Linda stared at the note she must have written 20 years ago, her own younger hand holding its shape in black ink. She pressed a palm to her mouth, angry with gratitude. Garrett leaned in. So the reporter's second agreement is, my bank's paper trail transformed into scandal, Margaret finished. They want to say Linda took hush money twice. Let them show you a signature then. Not mine, not hers. She tapped the old check. They won't because it doesn't exist. The board chair shifted in her chair like a woman who'd been rehearsing a statement and now had to throw it away. This is all very emotive, she began, defaulting to the vocabulary of people who distrust tears. But the public will hear what we give them, Garrett said, not what we hide from them. He looked to Linda and Kate. We do this on our terms. Linda's mouth set. No staged interview, no exclusive where they slice us to fit their ad breaks, a podium, a microphone, questions we actually answer. Kate felt her pulse thrum. And we bring the lab's final report. She turned to Margaret. Will you stand with us? Margaret met her granddaughter's gaze. I have stood in kitchens and at graves and behind curtains for long enough. I can stand at a podium. Garrett glanced at the clock. We have an hour before the court hearing. We make a statement outside, then we go to the judge with proof and with context. He tapped the first envelope, the old rot. We submit the 1999 NDA as evidence of coercion beyond our control. The PR chief, finally allowed breath, stepped forward. We can set it up on the plaza. No, Linda said. The diner. 4 heads snapped toward her. Their cameras are already there. It's where the truth began. If we make our statement in your glass palace, they'll call it spin. If we say it at Murphy's, they'll have to call it human. Garrett considered. The risk was real. Optics, crowd control, chaos. He nodded anyway. The diner, he agreed. Pete will like that. Margaret slipped her gloves back on. If we're walking into a storm, we can at least choose our shoes. They moved like a small army that had just learned which hill matters. Security redeployed. PR called ahead. The SUV nosed out into streets that had learned suddenly how to be narrow. Kate sat between her mother and her grandmother, 3 generations pressed shoulder to shoulder, all of them smelling faintly of different years. Garrett's phone lit again. Adele. Certified full report uploaded. He met Kate's eyes. We end it. They turned onto Main. Murphy's neon sign buzzed stubbornly, same as ever. The car rolled to a stop in the alley. Through the window, Kate could see the red vinyl booths, the checkered floor, Pete standing behind the counter with his arms folded like a bouncer for truth. Are you sure? Garrett asked. No, Linda said, but we're going anyway. They stepped out. The alley air tasted like old coffee and rain. At the corner, the crowd surged. Cameras perched, microphones craning, voices rising. Security formed a corridor. Garrett didn't take it. He slowed, letting Linda and Margaret set the pace, Kate between them. As they reached the back door, Pete pushed it open. You sure? He asked, eyes wet and fierce. Absolutely not. Thank you. They filed inside. The diner hushed. Even the griddle seemed to listen. Pete had cleared a space near the front window, where the morning light came in honest and unflattering. A single borrowed microphone sat on a cake stand. It would have to do. Garrett stepped to the side, deliberately not center. Linda took the mic. The cameras pressed to the glass like heat. The bell on the door trembled but held. "My name is Linda Baker," she began, voice steady enough to cut bread. "I lied to my daughter to protect her. I hurt the man I loved by disappearing, and I survived because that's what women without options do. Today we are telling the truth. Not to sell it, to end it." She nodded to Garrett. He lifted the lab report, the court envelope, the old NDA. "There will be questions," he said. "We will answer the ones that matter." He looked at Kate. "And we will not let other people give us our story." Kate stepped forward. She could feel the cameras like heat through the glass. "I'm Kate," she said. "I serve coffee. I study. Last week I turned 24. Today I learned the value of a signature and the cost of a lie." She drew a breath. "We will not be ashamed of being a family." A shout cut through the murmur outside. A woman with a microphone had found a crack in the door. "Mrs. Baker, did you accept money in 2001 to stay quiet?" "No." Linda didn't blink. "Can you prove it?" "Yes," Margaret said, moving to the microphone with the impatience of a woman done with other people's stage directions. "I can. I paid. She refused twice. I insisted a third time. If you want to accuse someone of paying, accuse me of loving my granddaughter." The crowd reacted in that low, animal way mobs have when a plot point shifts. Another voice rose, loud, confident, oily with certainty. "Do you deny that in 1999 you took private settlement to—" A new voice overrode it, a man's one, amplified from a portable speaker outside, the cadence familiar enough to turn Garrett's spine to wire. "Some truths are," the voice said, polished and rehearsed, "too dangerous to be told. Mr. Kane likes to call this justice. I call it recklessness." Garrett grinned still. "Charles," he whispered. The crowd parted, not physically, but in attention. At the edge of the plaza, on a small makeshift podium that hadn't been there 10 minutes ago, the founder's brother, Garrett's uncle, silver hair tamed into respectability, suit perfect, smile practiced, raised a hand. "In the interest of our shareholders," Charles Kane said smoothly, "I will be assuming interim leadership of Kane Industries effective immediately." Garrett didn't move. He didn't blink. He only set the lab report down on Murphy's counter with exquisite care. "Stay where you are," he told Linda and Kate without turning his head. Then he stepped toward the door.
The diner's glass rattled with the weight of 100 lenses pressed against it. Outside, Charles Kane stood on his makeshift podium, immaculate in his tailored suit, voice booming through a portable speaker. "In the interest of protecting Kane Industries from reckless sentiment and personal scandal, I, Charles Kane, will assume interim leadership, effective immediately." Reporters shouted his name like it was a hymn. Microphones surged toward him. Flashbulbs burst like gunfire. Inside Murphy's diner, silence spread thick. Garrett stood at the door, back straight, hands loose at his sides, the kind of posture that said he wasn't retreating, but wasn't lunging either. Kate saw his jaw tighten, then loosen, the smallest muscle war of restraint. Linda whispered, "He's trying to erase you." "No," Garrett said, eyes on his uncle. "He's trying to erase us." Kate felt heat rise in her throat. "Then don't let him." Garrett stepped forward, pushing open the diner's door. The bell chimed, absurdly domestic against the roar outside. Cameras spun, reporters pivoted. Charles's face lit with the kind of smile men reserve for victory. "Garrett," Charles called, tone dripping honey. "At last. You've made this hard on all of us, but we can still salvage dignity if you stand down." Garrett descended the steps slowly, each one deliberate. The crowd surged closer, corralled only by security's outstretched arms. Kate and Linda followed, Margaret just behind them, her coat collar turned up like armor.
Dignity? Garrett's voice carried, low but resonant. You bought silence? You turned love into liability. And you dare call that dignity? Murmurs rippled, cameras leaned in. Charles raised his hand, smoothing the air. What your father did, he did for the company, for stability. Do you think shareholders care about your small-town melodrama? They care about value. Kate felt her fists curl. Linda touched her wrist lightly. Hold. Garrett didn't need her words. My father died building this company, but he built it wrong. He built it on fear, on control. And you, his gaze cut into Charles, you were his favorite apprentice. But I won't carry his mistakes. Not another day. Charles's smile thinned. Then you'll carry nothing. You'll walk away with no company, no legacy, no. He looked at Kate, calculating. No credibility. This waitress fantasy of a daughter won't save you from the market. The insults sliced. Kate felt the sting, but before she could speak, Garrett turned fully toward her, so the crowd saw his face when he said it. Not a fantasy. My daughter. Gasps cracked through the press line. Flashes lit the plaza like lightning. She is the legacy, Garrett continued. Not my deals, not my board seats. Her. He looked at Linda, voice breaking just once. Them. Linda blinked hard against sudden tears. Margaret straightened, chin high, as if reclaiming decades in a second. Charles's mask slipped, rage flickering at the edges. You'll destroy everything, he snapped, the veneer gone. You'll bankrupt us with sentiment. Garrett took the lab report from his pocket, held it high. The cameras devoured it, zoom lenses drinking in every line. A reporter shouted, Mr. Kane, is it true, 99.8%?
Conclusive, Garrett said. Kate Baker is my daughter. Linda Baker is the woman I should never have lost. And today, Kane Industries learns what family means. The plaza erupted. Questions, flashes, the rush of a story becoming history. Charles stepped forward, fury naked now. You'll regret this, he hissed. The board will crucify you. Garrett's smile was quiet, unshaken. Better crucified for truth than crowned for lies. Charles froze. Words stuck. Cameras watching, power slipping through his clenched fists. For the first time, Kate saw fear in the man who had controlled her family's silence for 24 years. Garrett turned to the crowd, to the cameras, to the world. My name is Garrett Kane, and I will not let my father's sins, or my uncle's, define my daughter's life. This is not scandal. This is reclamation. The cheer wasn't unanimous, but it was loud. Reporters jostled, microphones stretched, live feeds spiked across networks. And in that chaos, she saw it. The tide shifting. Not fully, not safely, but undeniably. Linda slipped her hand into Garrett's. Margaret placed hers over Kate's. 4 hands, 3 generations, one fragile bridge finally built in daylight. Charles stood alone on his podium, cameras still on him, but no longer his. Garrett leaned into the mic one last time. This is not the end of the Kane name. This is the beginning of what it should have been all along. The plaza roared. Kate looked at her father, and for the first time in her life, she believed the world could tilt and still land somewhere worth standing. If you were Kate, would you stand on that podium beside your father, or would you walk away from the cameras and protect your own life? And where are you watching from? USA, UK, Canada, or Australia? This was the finale of a shocking, true-to-life saga,
If it gripped you, subscribe to Bitter Truth Tales and hit the bell icon so you never miss the next story that proves truth always finds its voice.